Pornography. It's a huge epidemic, man. Are you struggling with pornography? This is one of those things that I find is so apparent in many of our lives as men, and it can be extremely difficult to get away from this little device and feeling called to pull it up whenever we have the temptations to work the sexual energy. So today, I'm here with my man, my good friend I've known for a while, Mr. John Paul. We're gonna be going through some incredible habits that you guys can take advantage of that aren't restrictive like a lot of the pitch posh you see online regarding getting off pornography, that actually direct energy towards the pornography despite it being you're not doing it, you're directing energy towards it. So we're actually gonna cultivate a healthy relationship with ourselves in this video so you can progress and move forward. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I would just say that anytime that we restrict ourselves from something, it grows. Like when we cut back bushes, they grow even faster. So the idea of just cutting something out completely only festers the problem ever more. So what resists persists.
I love that, yeah. So directing energy towards anything, even if it's negative and you're cutting it off, you're putting energy towards it. A good example of this as well is if you have a grudge towards someone, or you haven't really fulfilled a relationship, there's still tension there. It may be ended, but there's still tension to be resolved. So once you resolve that energy, you can be free from the chains of your own mind. So let's jump into some practical tips to get you off pornography and feeling more at ease with yourself. My name is Christian Van Camp. You can reach me on all platforms at CVC Wellness. John Paul, where can they reach you?
JPK Experience on all platforms.
All platforms, okay. We're gonna jump into why pornography is bad in the first place, because I see a lot of guys online, I'll post videos about this and reels and whatnot, and they actually try to rebuttal against it saying, well, actually, I do it and I feel really good from it. I beg to differ though. I think it's actually having a lot of psychosomatic issues over time. So let's dive into why pornography may be bad in the first place. What comes up for you is like, overall, why it's something that's detrimental to our spiritual, mental, and emotional health?
Yeah, first off, I find that it's very addictive. I've been addicted to pornography myself, just looking for that next hit of energy, of dopamine, because it does activate these dopamine receptors in our body, but then we reach for it more and more and more rather than the healthy stimuli like exercise, good nutrition, bonding, and relationships. But more importantly, when we watch porn, especially men, and when we ejaculate to porn, this releases prolactin. And when we release prolactin, our dopamine levels drop, our testosterone levels drop, our motivation for life drops. And this is actually a hormone for us to bond with another, with a lover. So if we don't actually bond with somebody after we release, we're basically left empty. We're left even more lonely, and it perpetuates these cycles of maybe why we're watching pornography in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, we can even see some of these research studies on the brain before and after porn, and there is some significant stuff when it comes to gray matter decreasing, which is your higher level cognitive function. We start activating more of this primal urge part of our bodies versus actually tapping into intuition, our soul of like, okay, this isn't serving me, let's use the resistance and then move into something else. So now that we know and understand that pornography is detrimental, prolactin increases, this is causing issues with our testosterone levels over time. And when we nut to the pornography also, dopamine drops below baseline. So this is where you lose the motivation, the shame and guilt may kick into gear. And we're also, I think that one of the biggest things with pornography is, you mentioned the prolactin, the connectivity in relationships, is we tend to actually look at women more so as objects versus actually perceiving them as their defined feminine.
Exactly.
That's a huge problem, right? When you see that too, is like the overall reconstruction of how we perceive others and relationships and conversation.
Yeah, just in our everyday life, we start to look at people like objects rather than just seeing them as their sole individual, soul consciousness self. And when we can ground into ourselves and we release these addictions, we actually show up more trustable because we're not preying on somebody as like, what can I get for them?
Oh yeah.
We're just seeing them as we are, and what can we exchange together? What can we create together rather than how can I get off on this person?
I like that, yeah. And also meshing in just something, if you're using these dating apps, use them with caution, because they do also have that programming effect of constantly judging and scrolling within a split second of how this person looks versus actually looking at them, specifically women, as like, okay, this is a divine woman, you know, and then perceiving it that way. So also be careful with these apps, because that can lead into more addictions down the line as well. So let's go into the why for change. You know, we just described a ton of things and why it's detrimental. That may motivate you enough, but for some of us, it maybe you're still following the same patterns and you know all this stuff, you're fully aware of it. So let's dig into, you know, how you can catapult change through negativity and positivity. I like to say you have to have something pushing you, which is the negative change, and then also something pulling you, which is that positivity of like, okay, I'm going in the right direction. I have an aim now. So what would be some of those things that you can analyze yourself that is negative, that is pushing you away from the shame and guilt, and then some of the things that is positive, that is pulling you towards, oh wow, I feel free in my sexual energy, right? So let's dive into that a bit. You know, what are some of those things that for you that helped you when it comes to in the past cultivating a better relationship with yourself, with your sexual energy over time? What were some of those things in your personal experience?
Yeah, I realized that I felt lonely. I felt shame and guilt for doing these things, for watching these things. And I didn't want to stay in these low-level consciousnesses. So just identifying that, having awareness to something, I think is really important. And on top of that, I was watching porn basically as much time as I could, like as often as I could, whether that was in the truck, you know, in between a little job, like, oh, I've got 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
just get that little dopamine rush. Yeah.
And so I realized, wow, I'm wasting all this time, actually life force energy, because a nut, you know, a little tiny seed can produce millions of lives. So realizing that I can direct my energy into something was like, oh, this is worth it. I can save my seed and put this towards my goals, towards my relationships, towards my fitness, towards my business. And so that enough was like, okay, I don't really need to waste my time on this, and I can direct it towards X, Y, and Z.
I love that. So that's the sexual transmutation, right? You're recognizing, where do I transmute and shift my sexual energy? I can relate to that as well. I wasn't ever really super entrenched into pornography, but I had moments like that consistently throughout high school, and it would progress in different pockets of life. It would be very cyclical for me, where I'd be like, okay, none of this, and then I'd do all out. For me, it was very much a distraction method from sitting with myself and my soul. When I got bored, it was like, okay, let's get a little bit of a spark here through the porn and whatnot. And it only can get worse, right? You may be in a position where it started off very subtle, and then it just gets into more of this hardcore stuff because you're not getting that extra edge. So really recognize where you're at now and start taking the steps back, right? So let's talk about that and how we can basically shift away from the porn and then open up in this new directionality, because it's not necessarily about no porn, or it's not necessarily about just no porn. It's about having the direction with no porn, because you create a void there.
Yeah.
So what can we do with that void? You remove the porn, what is there next? What are some examples of ways we can move through this in your mind when it comes to like, okay, in our culture saying no fap, absolutely no touching yourself. That's something we can get into as well. But also this idea of like, remove the porn, what do you do next? What comes up is like the steps.
Right, well, as a men's empowerment guide and sexual kung fu coach, I always recommend sexual kung fu as one practical tool. We can
sexual kung fu. What is this weird word? Sexual, you know, it's so novel. It's so taboo.
Right, and it's simply the mastery of our sex. And so it's not about not touching ourselves, and that's something that I have a challenge with the nofap whole regime, is that
hashtag nofap everywhere, you know.
Yeah, we just shut ourselves off from our genitals.
Yeah.
But this is the root of who we are.
It's right there all the time too. You know, it's right there.
This is what differentiates us from women, right? And so to have a healthy anchored relationship into our genitals is key. And it's not about not touching it, it's about having solo cultivation, having self-pleasure practices. Maybe it's setting ourselves, like giving ourselves a date. Like, oh, okay, at this time, I'm going to tune into myself. Whether that's actually going into pleasure or the sexual kung fu practices, or simply reverting to more breath work or exercise.
There we go. Yeah.
Or, you know, some of these goals, like, man, I'm noticing this. Actually, I need a journal. I need to reflect more. Something's coming up. Something that I'm avoiding is present, and so I want to just let go of it and procrastinate.
So it's about shifting the energy, the transmutation in a way. It's like, okay, I'm going to transmute this into my work, my purpose, my side hustle is a really good way to look at it in more of a business perspective. Or like you're saying, just movement. Like, okay, I'm feeling this urge to work this energy, maybe practice the sexual kung fu, which there's a lot of intricacies in that. JP can teach you and support you on that quite a bit, and more one-on-one work, or some of the things he has offerings we'll get into later at the end of this video, or I myself can help you work through some of these things too. If you need more of that direct accountability and support, we can definitely support you on that. But yeah, it can be transmuted. So exercise, breath work, movement, a journal, different habits right in that moment shift the energy. Like you feel the impulse, I want to watch porn and start looking it up, immediately shift the impulse. I also like to say you can add some things as an extra layer of security to prevent yourself from diving into it. And if you really feel like you don't have the self-control internally, like we're talking about, like immediately cascading and transmuting the energy, then set up some things like blockers on your websites or whatever. Something like that is a good, helpful way. I've never done that personally, but I've talked to some guys that say like that's a great way to go, because it's like that. You literally have no other choice. You can't look it up on your phone.
There's also a practice called sacred porn watching.
Okay.
Okay, and what one would do is just turn on the porn, watch it, don't touch yourself. Watch it for 5 minutes, allow yourself to be aroused, turn off the porn, and then go into movement, yoga, self-cultivation. So what we're doing is we're starting to pull away from, I'm watching porn and I need to jerk it.
While you're at the same time.
So we stop it, we're like, okay, I'm aroused, maybe even appreciate the people that are, using their body to perform these acts, but like find the appreciation, find the gratitude in it, and then have more of a sacred practice. That could be a way to titrate off of it.
Oh, I love that tip, actually. That's really good. Yeah, it's a good way to start. That's a great way to shift the energy up. Yeah, overall, you have the default. If you're feeling hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, I go back to that reference. You might have heard of that before. Halt. Notice, what is the trigger mechanism into you reaching for the porn in the first place? Shift that energy into these overall habits we discussed here. Working out, maybe even going through the beginning appetizer, removing it, cultivating your own sexual energy. Let's dive a little bit into what sexual kung fu is a little bit deeper before we start getting towards the end here. How would you describe it a little bit more in like actual practical habits you go through in the moment of sexual kung fu?
Yeah, sexual kung fu it's a practice. It's a practice of moving sexual energy throughout our body. Most men have a sexual charge right here in the genitals, and that's it. And then we sneeze it out and we let it go and we come back for more. Like, oh, okay, that was a nice dopamine hit. Now I'm gonna do more. So the act of sexual kung fu is learning to move that energy all throughout the body. So it can be a practice of tantric edging, where you're edging and you're breathing and you're allowing the energy to flood, because it does take about 20 minutes of a solo practice or with a partner, so in a dual practice, to access ultimate states of orgasm, non-ejaculatory states of orgasm. But if you're releasing it just in 3 minutes, you don't actually get the best
full course meal, man.
Like
it's right there.
The connection to God. And that's what sex kung fu starts with. It's really allowing ourselves to tap into the divine spirit through specific movements, learning how to open up the different energy centers of the body. The fascia, the cells, turning on the cells so that they can be energy receptors and givers. And so this could be simple practice of squeezing your testicles, or pulling, what we call milking or sharpening the knife, or simply just tapping. Like tapping the body while you're breathing is part of the sexual kung fu practice.
I love that.
So it really is it's a part of qigong. It's a part of the Chinese medicine.
Exactly. That's what's cool. It's like if you know about qigong, you quite literally could just be practicing qigong while you're cultivating this energy. You may be erect and you feel it. You're at that peak capacity. But one thing I also go back to is don't go above that like 70, 80%, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you want to hang out at 7 or 8, 70 to 80%. Once you get over 90%, just start to really dial it back.
Really breathe into it.
Come back. Like let go. Like pull your hands off your penis and just breathe into it. And the more that you can extend this capacity up to 20 minutes, up to even longer, the more you're accessing the multi-orgasmic experience. And when we are in deep states of orgasm, we're actually tapping into love and healing frequencies. And so, but if we just have a quick dose, a quick spew right out into a Kleenex, we're not actually harnessing the energy.
It's about the experience, the journey, the hike versus just the end result. You arrive and put down the flag. But in this circumstance, when you release so fast, there's no flag. You're pretty much in despair, right? You're tumbling down the mountain.
Yeah, and can you come back into presence, right? Can you come back to just being in the moment rather than trying to get somewhere? And that's what porn has done to a lot of men. It's like, oh, I've got to get to this place. I'm watching these guys, got to go there. Or like, maybe we have the opposite effect where we're premature ejaculators.
Yeah.
And then it's like so hard to break that because we don't know we don't have the tools or the capacity to increase our orgasmic potential. So yeah, really learning to just be with yourself, be present, be in the moment, not trying to get somewhere. And that's not only going to take your own life to the next level, but when you're making love to your partner. It's going to support their journey, because women take a lot longer to reach orgasmic states. So we have to, you know, we have to boil
Nurture
the water
it.
a little bit, because women are water, we're fire. So we got to stoke it a little bit rather than just
it's gone.
Starting our fire and it's out.
And that is the worst feeling ever. I've had that in a lot of my intimate partners in the past, where I would finish too quickly in 5 minutes, and it's just like, oh, I'm so guilty or shameful about this. And then we lay in the bed until I'm aroused again. It's just like, it's not a good feeling at all, right?
And I think porn is really responsible for that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, in the past, that's where it was all starting for me.
Yeah.
And that origination, it's just so, yeah, really ask yourself, you know, what is serving you right now, what's not, and if you feel a calling, reach out for direct support from us. We have a lot of offerings. He does a lot of one-on-one work, right?
Yeah, one-on-one and group work.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's really awesome, the things that I offer as well through like the Vital Camp community. You can join that. There's a lot of the sections on working the sexual energy, one-on-one support too, more intimately in areas of nutrition and fitness and lifestyle. JP will also address a lot of those things, because that is a part of your potency as well. But it's really all about the holistic lifestyle, guys. Connect the dots, because it's never a linear thing. If you're troubled by your 9-to-5 job, that may be the reason why you're actually having this porn addiction. Or if you're having shame or guilt from issues in the past relating to your family or some of the traumas, that may be the origination. So ask yourself, where's the root of this? Literally the root leading to this root issue, and how can you address that firsthand to start working through some of these addictions and troubles, right?
Yeah, couldn't say it any better than that.
Sweet. All right, subscribe for more. Hit up JP, follow him on all platforms, and we'll stay in touch, guys. Peace and love from above.
Lots of love.